going on, man? Back for another one of these?
Yeah.
Yeah? How's the ongoing saga of the kitchen remodeling and building license codes and all that stuff?
If it's not one thing, it's another. We definitely need to have an episode at some point about city codes and ordinances.
Well, I keep thinking as soon as you're done, we'll do like a whole walkthrough of what happens, but I don't know when you're ever going to be done at this point.
It's like every time you do anything, you make any tiny little change, now you think you're good, and then comes another code issue you got to deal with. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah, one inspector tells you to do something, you get it all sorted, and then 18 other things are wrong because you did that one thing.
I'm really just starting to be like, I like the mob version of doing business where you just create a freaking speakeasy somewhere and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, just grease the wheels a little and do your thing.
That's looking more and more attractive.
I think it's why people did it back then. So.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
Well, the big news in media this week, December 5th, Netflix made an offer to purchase Warner Brothers Discovery. It's a big deal. So that offer includes all of Warner Brothers Studios and the media library. The library includes HBO, so all those cool shows like Game of Thrones, Succession, The Last of Us. It also includes DC Comics and Harry Potter, and just a monster library of major franchises, film and TV libraries. It would make Netflix the undisputed leader in streaming. The offer is at $72 billion in equity, and then I believe they absorbed $10.7 billion in Warner Brothers debt for a total offer of $82.7. So it equates to about $27.50 per share. Netflix would not be purchasing any of the cable or news networks. Those are going to get spun off into a separate company called Discovery Global.
Wasn't there a time not that long ago when like $1 billion was a lot?
Right. And now we're talking about $80 billion.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, now I see people online going, if you're a millionaire, you're not actually wealthy in this country anymore.
Yeah, I think it's if you're $1 million, you're at the top 10% now. And, and to be like in the top 0.001, you have to be in the billions.
That's nuts. So anyway, what's going on? So Paramount, in an offer and a surprise move on December 8th, Paramount initiated a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers. So lots of games up there at the top. They went around the board of directors who were negotiating with Netflix and made a tender offer to the shareholders of $30 per share to buy the whole company, including the cable and news networks. An offer of $108.4 billion in total. Just casually go up another $20 billion. Shareholders have until January 8th to make a decision.
Yep, it's pretty wild. So I believe Paramount has been negotiating for the last 12 weeks with Warner Brothers, trying to create a good competitive offer to compete with Netflix, and they've just been ignored by Warner Brothers.
I saw a meme about this the other day. It was on some board. It was like Netflix is gonna make Looney Tunes gay.
Oh no!
And somebody said, "Oh really?" And they posted like this whole montage of like Bugs Bunny
dressed in
drag and stuff, and kissing all the male characters.
Yeah,
we're like, "Got news for you."
Well, so this has become one of the most consequential corporate battles in recent entertainment history, and the outcome really could have widespread ramifications. It could redefine Hollywood, streaming, content distribution, and really the power structure of media companies. It's kind of a wild deal.
We got to talk about how it's going to affect small business, though.
Oh, for sure. We're going to get to that. I mean, really, this won't directly affect most small businesses unless you're in the studio or production space, but there are still some lessons that we can learn from this saga. So the big major concerns that this deal, both the Netflix offer and the Paramount hostile takeover kind of bring up is antitrust and the national security concerns. I never thought one of these deals would have national security concerns, but that's what we're going to be talking about. So these type of major mergers, they always raise the question of antitrust concerns. So antitrust refers to the set of laws and regulations designed to promote competition and prevent any one company from becoming so large or powerful that it dominates the market. Basically trying to avoid a monopoly where a giant single company has no real competitors and therefore can do and charge whatever the hell they want.
Didn't we already go through this like 100 years ago? You know, when with all the trust busting and busting up the monopolies, and so
Yep.
you know, just we know that our customers are you know our viewers are business minded and everything. So, but basically monopolies just they decrease competition, and when competition is decreased, prices increase.
100%. Yeah. And the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission investigate these kind of antitrust issues, and they've killed deals before. So it's a possibility that even whether the shareholders accept the Paramount deal or whether Netflix and Warner Brothers sign a deal, that regulators can say, no way this is happening. It happened in 2015 with the Comcast and Time Warner deal. It happened with AT&T and T-Mobile. The DOJ sued and killed the deal. So these antitrust regulations are the main concern between the Netflix and Warner Brothers deal. But Paramount's deal has a completely separate issue, which is national security concerns. So
Yeah, let's see what that is.
Paramount's offer is backed by Gulf region sovereign wealth funds, so money from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. So this means that CNN, HBO documentaries, news outlets, and political content could very well be influenced by foreign interests.
So someone was talking about working at a network in America. Oh, I know what it was. It was Newsmax.
Mm-hmm.
So they're working at Newsmax, and then Newsmax, I guess, needed money or got some investment, and they got the investment from a Qatari fund.
Right.
And the coverage before that was always critical of the Qataris and whatever they were doing that Newsmax felt that they needed to be reporting on that was negative towards them. And then after they bought in to Newsmax, all the anchors were told no more criticism of Qatar.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, I mean, and it makes sense. Like these investment funds would probably want to promote their own agenda. So that's why these kind of national security concerns are raised. And the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States, I believe they call it CFIUS, investigates the deal. So they will likely force conditions on the deal structure to make sure that the foreign interests cannot too heavily influence media.
We would expect that to be the case.
Correct.
However, in the current climate, with the business president, all they have to do is do the right kind of business with the business president, and they'll get whatever they want.
And to be fair, I think that if foreign money wants to invest in the United States, it's typically a good thing. But when you're talking about media specifically, there can be a lot of influence, and it's a little scary to think.
There's a lot of influence in a lot of things. They buy up farmland. They get into critical industries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of places where that influence can be there. That's why we have to have. That is why we need really good regulation on that. So for example, if they did invest, great, money can come in, but money can't vote. Is how they should have it. You know.
Right. So there's a bunch of different possible scenarios for how this could turn out. We're going to talk about each one, and then I'd like to hear what your opinion is. So the first one is Netflix offer accepted and approved by regulators. So Netflix would become the absolute undisputed king of streaming. They would be double the size of any of their closest competitor. It would just a monstrous gap. Disney and Amazon, who are the next closest right now, are going to have to do some kind of response. They're going to have to go out and buy other companies, try to cannibalize studios and grow it themselves. Otherwise, they're basically going to become irrelevant at some point. Netflix just built a monster studio on the East Coast to do their own studio production. If they buy Warner Brothers, they're going to have the biggest studio on the West Coast. So they're just going to be a dominant force in the entertainment industry. So studios without streaming platforms will immediately become targets for takeovers. Competitive pressure is going to decline. Budgets will be bigger. So I think we'll see some really cool big budget movies. But major platforms that invest all of this money, they become risk averse. They become very less risky. So I think that means very little creativity, and probably just worse products overall. They're just going to keep spitballing the same crap that they know everybody likes. There's not going to be anything new and exciting or a creative risk taken. So the next one is Paramount's offer is accepted by the shareholders. So we'll talk a little bit in a minute about what a hostile takeover is and kind of how that works. But Paramount's gone around the board and just directly offered the shareholders $30 per share, which is a little more than Netflix. Paramount would take a major leap in size overnight. They're not bigger than Netflix, but they would be probably number 2, pretty close to Amazon and Disney. Hollywood would probably be forced to consolidate to mega studios to remain competitive. And then CNN, CBS, and HBO has that influence that we talked about, this foreign influence of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, probably telling them what can and can't be on the news.
Our own president tells them what can and can't be on the news. So.
Right. So the last option is the deal kind of collapses. Now, there's a bunch of little caveats to each one of those. Like there can be the DOJ or the CFIUS can put in like certain regulations or all that stuff. But the other big option is that the deal collapses. So private equity is going to have to intervene if the deal collapses. The reason that Warner Brothers is trying to be sold and trying to be taken over by Paramount is because it just has major debt, and so it's a big target. It cannot sustain itself as it is. So private equity would probably need to step in and lend some money. We'd probably see a breakup of traditional media conglomerates. Independent studios would rise. More licensing to Netflix, Amazon, and Disney. And probably, this is what an analyst report I said, we'd probably see a renaissance in like medium budget film and TV, which I think is great because those things are typically way more creative than the big budget stuff. So of these 3 options that we talked about, Netflix taking over, Paramount's hostile takeover, or just the deals collapsing either from regulators saying that they can't do it or the deals falling apart, I want the deals to fall apart. I think it's the best move.
Why would cable be dead, though?
So cable is dying. Warner Brothers Discovery is, I think, the biggest holder of cable news and networks right now. They have a bunch of the ones that get the highest ratings as of today. There's just nobody to back them
So
anymore.
when we say cable, right, we're talking about like literally like the cable that comes to your house,
So
the old coax
the big
plug-in.
ones is CBS, TNT, HGTV, Discovery Channel, those kind of things. So in the Netflix deal, they're going to spin that off into its own little company that will have a budget enough to run. Warner Brothers right now is in $10 billion of debt, largely due to cable TV networks trying to run those. They just don't make any more money. Streaming has replaced them. I don't even have cable anymore. Do you still have cable?
No, I haven't had cable in years, but I mean,
So it's
all the
just gonna be
channels
dying.
that you want to watch are all available on streaming.
Right.
So.
So cable as we know it, I think, is going to die.
See, that's the thing. So I've got YouTube TV, for example,
Mm-hmm.
which basically is cable.
Yep. And I think that's the move. We do have cable because we watch Hulu and we have the live TV.
Right.
So I think each of these individual channels will probably get bought by streaming services. And I think the local news will still be a thing. But I don't think that we're
that's what I
putting
guess.
out shows for free
Right.
with commercials.
So I
think it'll all
guess
be on
what I
streaming.
understand it is cable is channels that are generally only available on cable, which are now no longer only available on cable
Correct.
because you can get them over the internet,
Yeah.
and you can get your internet through cable coming into your house, or you can get it through fiber or some other kind of broadband. So,
Right.
or your phone even, right? If you like, there's home internet through phones. So therefore you can watch all these channels that you want to watch, but you're not necessarily forced to take them all in a bundle like you used to with cable packages.
Correct.
Okay, I get it.
But,
all right.
But just kind of cable as we know it is probably going to be dead, unfortunately.
All right.
So that's my opinion. I think allowing Netflix or Paramount to kind of swallow up Warner Brothers risks repeating the Disney and Fox consolidation, which caused a lot of problems when that came around. There was a lot of antitrust issues there too that kind of just got swept under the rug. Too much power in too few hands. So a breakup of Warner Brothers Discovery, it might be chaotic in the short term, especially as they try to cover this debt and break apart the company, but it has the potential to kind of revitalize the entertainment landscape, restore competition amongst smaller studios, and really give audiences probably more and innovative and diverse content. So that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think this deal would be better one way or the other? Just from what you know about it. I mean, I know we're not industry experts, but
it's just like I don't know, because I feel like I feel like all of advertising anyway is run by, all of content is run by advertising or subscriptions, whatever you can, get out of it. So I feel like that what will happen is either one of them takes over, the subscription prices for their services are going to rise.
Yeah.
I feel like that that the news, is less and less trustworthy, because we see how easily it is for particular individuals who are buddying up to the government or outspoken against the government can direct what's going on. I mean, that used to be William Randolph Hearst, with his newspapers used to direct his editors to support whomever he wanted to be
right
in power.
Right.
So I think that this could potentially be bad in that respect. It could reduce a lot of content. It could also open up the door for other companies to, when people are dissatisfied with the rise in prices and stuff, it could end up making it where we could start to see a lot of smaller networks, so to speak, rise up, where people are making their own content in channels, where you start to see a lot of these people that get fired or leave these big conglomerates start to open up smaller studios.
Well, now, see, that's the thing, is I don't think they'll have the capability of opening the smaller studios, because the distribution is going to be so consolidated that everybody's basically just going to be making shows for Netflix.
Well, but what if people go on like YouTube, for example, and like Midas Touch has gotten pretty big.
It's a great point. And there's also a thing called Tubi, and I think like Movie Up or something. Calvin, you were telling me about the other one. What was it?
You have like Tubi, Movie, Pluto TV.
Yeah, where they just operate from commercials. Like they run movies and it's free. You can watch movies and stuff. The problem is that once Netflix take over Warner Brothers, most of their current library is going to be snatched away.
No, I get that part of it, right?
Yeah.
I get that, and they're basically, they are basically operating like old TV channels.
Mm-hmm.
They run a movie and they have commercials running against them. I'm assuming they pay a license to whomever owned the movie.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what I'm speaking of, though. I'm speaking of, I think that we will start to see more creative shows happening from smaller independent studios who will not need such a big audience.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? They won't, when they produce a film, if they get 1 million views on the film, it's going to do really well for them and be able to pay everybody involved with it.
Yeah. Chandler mentioned to me that when a YouTube guy, Markiplier or something like that, has made his own film, and the audience has been so supportive that they've boosted it now to like 1,000 different theater
Screenshot was going to come out on 50 theaters, and now it's like 1,000.
So you might be right. I just have this feeling that if Netflix kind of takes over Warner Brothers, and then Amazon and Disney start to ramp up their acquisitions to compete, we're going to have 3 monster companies, and there's going to be no bandwidth or just, attention paid to any of this small stuff.
The biggest thing I see is if they start to snap up the internet service providers, that was a thing a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's the what is it called, the Network Freedom or something like that, Internet Freedom Foundation.
Yeah.
That was rallying against some of this consolidation that was happening, because they were like it's whoever controls the highway.
Yeah. And that's probably that Time Warner Comcast deal that got blocked.
That could have been it, but it's basically like it was a thing, I think, with Comcast or Cox or one of them where it was they were asserting a right to throttle.
Yep.
And a right to say, like I think it had to do with Netflix or something like that, where it was like Netflix was like, look, our customers should be able to get whatever we stream, to their homes. And I think it was Comcast or something that was like, well, we have a right to throttle that because we have our own streaming stuff. So they were the assertion was that Netflix's streaming was being throttled in a way that it was slower or more cumbersome to use or more glitchy than Comcast's own thing. Now I say Comcast, I could be wrong. I don't know if it was Cox or Comcast or whomever, but basically it was because the cable company is essentially an internet service provider.
Yeah.
And they have their own subscription streaming services.
Yeah.
So,
well, Calvin, jump in with your 2 cents here.
I was going to say,
you're an industry expert.
Kind of speaking of what the effect that, and I get what John's saying, the effect that you're really going to probably end up having is a trickle down effect of Warner Brothers. So let's say, for example, let's take Tubi. Tubi is a ad based, fast type of app, streaming app. Their biggest competitor is Pluto TV, which is also another streaming app offering like live TV and things like that. So let's run through both of these scenarios. The first scenario, Netflix wins. What's going to happen is all of that Warner Brothers content is going to be hoarded by Netflix, which is huge for places like Tubi because think about shows like Friends and stuff like that have huge followings that are currently on Tubi and you can watch with ads. You're no longer going to be able to get that. On the flip side of that, Netflix dominates premium ad dollars, because now all of the people are going to be, or the advertisers are going to be wanting to follow those shows because they know they can follow those crowds, which Netflix, their lowest tier is an ad-based tier. And so, you're gonna have to pay for Netflix just to see any Warner Brothers content. On the flip side of that, Warner Brothers shows, if Paramount was to get it, the Warner Brothers shows would go to Pluto TV, which is Tubi's rival. Paramount owns a total market bundle, which would be TV streaming plus the fast advertising streaming platforms. That's, you can't beat that. So they're going to get, basically all of the ad dollars that support their platform taken right from them. But there's an even bigger portion to that too. Sports. If Netflix was to win the deal, then shows or networks like TNT that have still have some sports. They're really
they
big
have the NBA contracts, don't they?
Well, they no longer have the NBA contract. They lost that to Amazon and NBC starting this year, but they do still have the other half of the streaming rights for March Madness.
Okay.
And so, if the Netflix deal was to go through, you're going to lose out on things like, Major League Baseball contracts that they have with TNT, U.S. soccer contracts that they have with TNT. Netflix would probably keep the documentaries and stuff like that, and then they just scrap everything else.
Well, I wonder if some of that will get spun off into that Discovery Global or whatever.
That's the other side of it. If Paramount was to win, then it would make TNT fold into CBS Sports, which would then give them the total rights to things like March Madness.
Oh, that's crazy.
I guess the way that you could look at it is they'd be considered a new sports superpower just in that portion alone, because they would have NFL, Big Ten sports, golf. They'd have NHL, MLB, and all of March Madness. That would create a sports division that would rival ESPN in scale. And so there's some big ramifications no matter which way this deal goes.
So what's your opinion? Which one do you think? What's the best way? Just kill the deals entirely?
I mean, if it depends on which way you want to look at it, right? Some people out there are tired of having to pay 5 different subscription services for the things that they like.
Yeah.
Some people really don't care, and we've seen it with like this YouTube TV thing recently. When they had this big showdown with Disney and ESPN, they lost a lot of subscribers
because they couldn't reach a deal, and ESPN went dark in the middle of college football season. But then how they responded was a way that's probably going to be the blueprint going forward, because YouTube TV has been the first company that's had the flexibility to do this, what people that were in cable for a long time asked for, and they now offer packages based upon what channels you want to watch. And so if you want, ESPN's one of the most expensive channels out there. If you want to watch ESPN, yeah, you can pay for the package that has ESPN. It's going to be way more expensive than the package that just gives you maybe your local TV channels.
How about just stop the packages altogether and just make it all a la carte? You get what you buy what you want, you consume what you want. You want to buy something, you can consume one episode of it. You want to watch a football game, you buy that.
See,
if you want to watch a whole season, you buy that.
See, I think that gets more expensive, though. People start buying stuff, so I don't know.
I mean, it can get more expensive, but you also aren't saddled with a bunch of stuff that you don't want.
I remembered like 10 years ago, I cut my $150 a month cable bill to just do the Netflix, which is $10. And then about 5 years later, I looked and I was paying for Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and all these other deals, and it was more expensive than my dang cable bill.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I don't know that it would get any cheaper no matter which direction any of these deals go.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we can learn from this. So what is a hostile takeover? So I don't think everybody quite knows what a hostile takeover means. Hostile takeovers, they really can only happen for corporate companies, in particular ones that are publicly traded, so that you can buy the shares publicly. A hostile takeover is when one company tries to buy another company against the wishes of that target company's board. So typically the board says no, and the buyer goes around them directly to the shareholders. So this is exactly what's happening with Paramount.
But it can also happen in a small business.
It can, which we will absolutely
right,
get to.
And
Yeah. So a hostile takeover typically starts with what's called the quiet accumulation phase. So anytime a single investor purchases more than 5% of a business, it has to get reported to the SEC. So the beginning phase of the hostile takeover, the hostile buyer purchases 4.9% of the company to gain a foothold, influence, and lower the overall acquisition costs. So next comes, once they have that foothold, is the friendly attempt where they try to negotiate with the board. That is typically then, hopefully a deal goes forward and then it's just a friendly takeover. But if it's rejected by the board, then the hostile fight happens. And the next thing that happens is a tender offer where companies that own that 4.9% and are trying the hostile takeover, they make an offer directly to shareholders. They offer a price to purchase those shares. And if enough shares are tendered or bought, then the hostile buyer gains control. And while this is happening, a proxy fight kind of usually occurs where the hostile buyer tries to replace board members. So the shareholders can vote out board members and vote in new board members. And those new board members would hopefully be more inclined to vote for the acquisition. So this kind of tender offer and proxy fight occur at the same time. Now, I don't think Paramount is engaging in a proxy fight, or I couldn't find anything on it anyway, but they have made the tender offer, and their tender offer was $30 a share, which is $2.50 more than the Netflix deal. And what you were saying, a hostile takeover, it can't happen in this way unless the company is publicly traded, but there are still a lot of fights in between partners, and if you don't control the whole company, you can really get in trouble. So
right. Well, I've seen partners gang up on other partners by going outside and finding investment to buy out their partners. I've seen people from outside of companies offer to buy the company and try to make offers to the partners who hold the majority of the interest or the shares. Not a corporate type of situation, but just like when in my situation we had 4 partners, each of us owned 25%, and 3 of the partners voted me off the island, so to speak.
Right Well, and it's illegal for them to just vote you off the island and take your percentage without giving you money for it.
No, I got paid out, but
right. But see, the thing is, there's a lot of tricks they can do. They can vote you out. They can reduce the income of one company, start another company. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. And so one of the lessons that we can learn from this situation as small business owners is control matters. So who owns the shares or the equity controls the company. So structure matters a lot more than you think. In a corporation, boards control big decisions, but shareholders are what decide the fate. The shareholders can accept this Paramount deal, completely ignoring the wishes of the board. And founders of companies are easily replaced. For a small business, you have to be intentional about your splits, and you have to think about whether you want to be a minority partner. In your case, you were a minority partner. They were able to vote you off the island, basically. And so you don't want to give away your controlling interest unless you absolutely have to.
Right. We've talked about this many times, and I've told you my disdain for partnerships.
Right.
You know, and
Which is why we formed one.
which is yeah, exactly. So that ought to tell you right there how secure I feel about you, because of the fact that I had, you know, several partnerships go really wrong.
Yep.
And I had a friend of mine tell me one time that being partners, he's partners with someone, and I spoke with both of them, you know, and both of them told me the same thing. Each of them stays completely in their lane. They have learned how to work with each other. They've learned how to work around each other. In other words, let the other one do what they do best, and never assume that they know more than the other one in the area that they've agreed to. And they said it's even harder than a marriage to do that.
Partnerships are a lot like a relationship, and you have to give each other space to really control what you're best at. You know, you have to give me space to control the financial stuff. I have to give you space to control the more creative stuff, and it works well. So.
Yeah, and I mean, my wife and I are partners in my business, so
100%. Well, really, she just runs the show.
Well, there would be but I mean, yes, of course she runs the show logistically, and I say this all the time. Logistically, there would be no JB Cases without her, because if she didn't run the operations, she didn't do the purchasing and make all that happen, there would be no JB Cases. There would only be a dude with good ideas.
There'd be a guy who makes
case once a year.
Great cases.
Yeah.
But the business itself, you really have to have that backbone.
Yeah.
So if you find somebody that complements your skill set or really is makes up for your weaknesses, a partnership can be good, but you got to be careful.
Right.
So the next lesson we can really take away from this is that debt creates vulnerability. So a lot of people talk to me about funding companies, and honestly, debt is one of the ways that a lot of companies get started, but it makes you vulnerable. Warner Brothers is in this situation they're in now. They're dealing with Netflix, trying to make a deal, and they're trying to defend this hostile takeover because they're in debt. It takes away your strategic independence. It makes you attractive to people wanting to do hostile takeovers. And the investors and shareholders can pressure you into doing things that maybe you don't want to do.
So I've talked about this little booklet a lot on here called The Way to Wealth by Ben Franklin. Mm-hmm. And it's only like 27 pages or something. It's very short. But one of the phrases in that booklet is, and it's all about people who go into debt to buy things that they don't need, and then they find themselves, needing to borrow more money. And so one of the phrases in the book is, he that goes around borrowing goes around sorrowing.
Right.
Right. And basically that's what we're talking about right here.
So the next lesson we can think about on this too is valuation is perception based. So particularly with publicly traded companies, and when you're thinking about buying and selling stocks, Paramount's offering $30 a square foot, $30 a share, while Netflix is offering only $27.50 a share. It's worth $27.50 to Netflix, but to Paramount, it's worth $30 a share. And so valuation of your company or shares in general in the marketplace, there's a lot of perception in that valuation. It's not concrete all the time. The next thing we can talk about is competition drives innovation. So consolidation destroys it. So Netflix buying the content, but more importantly, the IP and media library, distribution and studio infrastructure, it's gonna destroy some of the innovation. That's my opinion, and that's some of the analyst reports that I've read. They are saying that these big mega powerhouse studios, they have to produce content to justify their huge value. And so they become less creative and less innovative.
I don't know. I mean, Netflix got to where they are by starting to produce their own content, and like Stranger Things and things like that. We talked about last week was Stranger Things thing, right? A
Yeah.
week or the final or whatever. And they have been able to create their own, cultural phenomena shows, so to speak.
Well, and I don't think that
And
there's going to be just a complete, dash on anything creative. I just think the amount of things that are risky and creative will go way down.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see what happens. So the board exists the next lesson we can learn is board exists to protect shareholders, but shareholder interests are never the same as managers. Shareholders in your company or investors in your company, they want to make money. Their interests are very rarely aligned with the founders or the board or the managers of the company. And so whenever you're taking on investors, you really need to be thinking about what do they want, and they kind of become your boss a little bit when you're running a company. When you take on an investment, you have to answer to those people. Mm-hmm. And your interests are never aligned. So it's important to, when you're thinking about structuring your business and you're thinking about taking on investment, to really pay attention to what are our interests and does each party want in a deal. Next one is timing matters in acquisition. So WBD's Warner Brothers Discovery stock was depressed. WBD's debt was high, and there was a lot of market uncertainty. And what we can learn from this is to really seize opportunities when competitors are weak. Watch market cycles, understand when your business and your competitors' businesses are valued too high or valued too low, know when to buy and sell. So it's an opportune time right now for Warner Brothers to be bought or hostily taken over, whichever one does happen. And so as a small business, you really got to be looking out for opportunities in the market. Look for your business competitors going out of business, buying up their stock, taking over their operations, whatever you can do.
Can't they just borrow more money against their stock?
Well, so that's the thing is they're already $10 billion in debt that they have to get taken over, and they can't service it. So you can borrow money as long as you can service the debt, but they're probably reached a point where they're really struggling. And I think if one of these deals doesn't happen, bankruptcy is probably looming for Warner Brothers.
Well, that's what I mean. We hear about that a lot, about people going into Chapter 11 and then they emerge from it a few years later.
Yeah, so there's two different types of bankruptcies, and I'm not a bankruptcy expert, but one of them is like Chapter 7, I think, which is like total bankruptcy, and you become insolvent. Everything is liquidated to pay off creditors as much as possible. Chapter 11 is actually a restructuring of your debt. So you get a bankruptcy, somebody's appointed, like a trustee or something is appointed to help restructure the debt and fix the business so that it can eventually pay off its debt. So,
and that would be kind of what they'd be looking at, probably.
Yeah. Parts of the company will be sold off that are less valuable, probably like the cable networks. And the core parts of the business that are making money would be kind of restructured in order to cover the debt. So that's what I believe that's a Chapter 11 is when they restructure the debt. And then the last thing that we can talk about here, one of the last lessons, is that every business needs a good exit strategy or one is eventually forced on you. So when you're thinking about starting a small business or you're thinking about starting a business at all, you need to think about, what is my exit? Like, what's my end goal? And there's several exits, and we've done a whole episode on it in our kind of series of the guide. But going public is an exit, selling the company is an exit, winding down the company is an exit, gifting it to the next generation or maybe to a key employee is an exit. So when you're building a business and you're building your business plan, it's very important to think about what the exit is, because a lot of your decisions that you make throughout the life cycle of the business kind of are informed by what your eventual exit should be.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, absolutely. I just had a discussion online about where we're at as a company, and one of the things I said was, I don't need to go out, and the discussion was about, these companies that are now using influencers. Mm-hmm. What they do is they basically give the influencer a little product, kind of like a goodie box of stuff. and the influencer then plasters their logo all over the podcast or all over their content, and it's really one-sided, where the brand is getting a lot more promotion than the influencer is getting, money that actually, anything that can be converted to money that helps them get down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that we're at a point where we sell everything we make. We're at full capacity, and I don't feel the need to continue to try to grow, because I know that at some point there will be a contraction. So my current strategy, which will lead to the exit of turning over the company to someone who can just continue to run it, pretty much the same way, is to just make sure that it's very steady and make sure that we are keeping the quality level where it needs to be. So that is, and people were saying, well, why don't you just hire more people? Why don't you, if there's that much demand? And I said, because it invites, like you said, it invites the exit strategy to be forced upon you.
Yep.
It invites more people to come in and compete with you once you start getting bigger and bigger, and then they start chipping away, and now you have to start firing people. You have to start downsizing. And I would rather just keep it at a level that we can really, be confident that it can consistently run and consistently provide a good income for everybody involved.
Well, we are about out of time. So let's end this episode with another call to action like we did on the last one.
Yeah.
I think every business owner out there should go and really think about what is your exit strategy. And if your exit strategy is to sell or give the company away to either one of your heirs or a key employee, what is it going to take to get the business ready to sell or to give away? Because it's probably not ready for somebody else to take it over right now. And what do you need to do to get there? So that's kind of our final call to action. Think about your exit strategy and think about what it's going to take to get there.
Or, just as a good idea, it might be a good idea just to think about, like, if something happened to me today, right?
Right. Yeah.
Would my business be able to continue? Because that would be a question. That would be one of those situations where your exit is forced upon you.
A great point. Well, find us at turtlesmith.com and our socials at turtlesmithok, and catch us for the live Thursdays at 4:30.
Excellent.
Excited. Ask your business questions. We'll see you all next week. This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at Turtlesmith OK and find us at turtlesmith.com.